Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Casey this week. I tried to tag the Counseling and Healing Arts page, but for some reason I couldn't figure out how to do that. So I did tag Tiffany. So if you see this and are able to share it over, I would appreciate it. This week's topic is anxiety, and I chose anxiety because it is the most common mental health concern in the world. 30% of people in general have an anxiety disorder. And a lot of people don't receive treatment. Actually, only 10% of the population that has anxiety actually seeks mental health treatment or treatment in the form of medication. So it's something that's extremely common, but I think a little misunderstood. And I wanted to hop on and talk about that. So if you hear the craziness, my children are upstairs and they are just, they're kids. So they're up there. If they pop down, don't mind them, but they are playing and having a good time. So if you hear them in the background, I apologize for that. But so let's talk about anxiety and what it is. So, well, actually, I don't know if I know myself. I'm Casey, and I am a mom, like I said, and I recently graduated with my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and I interned at Counseling and Healing Arts here in Fulton, New York, and I work for Child Protective Services right now, and I'm looking to get my licensure so I can do counseling full-time. It's what I went to school for and what I am excited about. Hey, Jennifer, how are you? We're talking about anxiety today. Each week, I pick a topic. Last week was self-care, and then every day I post about self-care and different things that you can do to improve on your self-care. This week will be anxiety, and we will do the same thing. Every day I will post something about anxiety, whether it's history or how to cope or what it is, and hopefully it'll kind of open the eyes of people who just don't understand what anxiety is and how it impacts people, and also people who have anxiety, how to better cope with day-to-day functioning. So first, anxiety is a natural response to an overstimulus. So fear and worry, things that your body says, okay, I either need to fight or I need to flee. That is what anxiety is. So to say that you have anxiety, that's natural. You should have some sort of level of anxiety. So what that means is you don't like to do public speaking, and you have to do a presentation in front of your class, or you have to present something at your job, and it makes you uncomfortable. What happens is you have a little bit of anxiety over that. So you have fear, you have worry, people are looking at you. What are they thinking about you? Are you going to stutter? What are you going to be able to present the information that you need to? Hey, Julie, how are you? I miss you so much. So what does that look like? Your body's reaction, what is it? So first, usually your mind will race all of those irrational thoughts. And it's your amygdala in your brain. So here's your brain, right? That's what your brain looks like. And this up here is your prefrontal cortex. And what that does is that controls all of your logical thinking. Okay, so your brain has your logical thinking prefrontal cortex here. And then inside your brain, right here, is your amygdala. And that controls all of your emotions and your feelings. And so what happens is your amygdala is firing and saying, oh my gosh, we're going to die, or oh my gosh, people are staring at me, or I can't handle this. And so what happens is when your amygdala fires and your prefrontal cortex, your logical thinking brain, can't compensate for the overfiring of your brain, of your amygdala, then that's when chronic anxiety happens, or an anxiety disorder happens, because there is a chemical imbalance in your brain that you are no longer able to regulate on your own. And so then your body has a response to a stimulus. So that response could be you feel cold. It could be you feel warm. You could sweat. Your focus will narrow, or you'll have a tingling, like pins and needles feeling in your body. It can be hard to catch your breath, hard to breathe. You start to panic. Your mind is racing. Your stomach aches. You have dry mouth. You aren't able to have sex. All of these things can happen when you have anxiety. Normal anxiety is different than chronic anxiety. So normal functioning anxiety is your amygdala says, oh my goodness, what is going on? And your prefrontal cortex says, things will be okay. You just need to breathe. Take some time. You'll be all right. And then your brain refocuses, and you're able to get through what that stimulus is. That's how normal anxiety works. When your brain is no longer able to regulate those things, then that's when all of those other feelings take over, and then it starts to impact your day-to-day life. So what does that mean? Worry, fear, distress, it takes over. So what a normal situation would be for someone with normal functioning anxiety, it changes. It's totally different for people who have anxiety, chronic anxiety, which can be social anxiety. It can be a fear of uncertainty, which is generalized anxiety disorder, and it can also be obsessive compulsive disorder. If you don't do this specific ritual, something bad will happen. And so you'll see sometimes people have to turn a doorknob 7 times before they leave the house, because the fear of, and these are all examples, the fear of being hit by a car if they don't turn that doorknob 7 times will be true. There is the catastrophic anxieties, which can be that something bad is going to happen. There is the specific phobias like arachnophobia. There's the social anxiety, which is the most persistent. It's the one that's most common as far as you get in social situations. Your body doesn't know how to react to those social situations. Mutism, selective mutism is also anxiety. So you choose not to speak. And I say choose lightly. It's not necessarily always a choice. You get into this situation where your body takes over and you no longer are able to speak. And then there's the fear of losing control and the panic, and that's panic disorders and things like agoraphobia, which is you literally cannot leave your house because you fear everything. You fear the grass, you fear the rain, you fear people are going to look at you, you fear that you're going to be harmed, and it can prevent you from living your life. Basically, your body, you're no longer able to reason with yourself and say, okay, things are going to be okay. You will sometimes overgeneralize, and so you walk into a room of people and everyone is staring at you. Everyone is judging your shoes. Everyone is looking that you have a coffee stain on your shirt. Everyone is thinking that you're incompetent. So it's overgeneralizing that maybe if you walk into a room of 10 people, one person looked at you and said, oh, they have a coffee stain on their shirt. But the other 9 people didn't notice. And even when that one person did notice, it truly didn't matter. Did them noticing that you had a coffee stain impact how you function or how you should function for the rest of the day? No. But that overgeneralization that basically says, I'm no longer able to handle this situation. There's been recent studies that have indicated that social media and screen time is contributing to an increase in anxiety. There, a lot of times you hop on your social media and you see that everyone posts about how wonderful their life is, right? Yeah, everyone's life is perfect. I can be guilty of that. I post about all of the accomplishments that my children, or that I'm really proud of myself and excited that I got my master's degree. Or that, I have a really amazing husband and that he's very supportive of me. So I might post about those things. But I didn't post about how I struggled through maintaining a full-time job, being a full-time mom, taking care of a house, making sure there was food on the table for my family, making sure my house was clean. Let me tell you the stress that was involved with making sure that I maintained a clean household. I was present and focused for my kids, that I made sure to share enough time, enough of me with my husband, that I was present with my clients at Counseling and Healing Arts, and that I was actually benefiting them in some sort of way, that I wasn't over stressed at my job with Child Protective Services, so I could go into each home with an open mind and make sure that I wasn't making decisions based on what I thought instead of what was best, or what those parents felt was best for their family. All of those things I struggled with because I was stretched so thin. When I was spending 20 hours at my internship and 40 hours at work, and then another 20 hours a week on homework, and I still had to sleep and see my kids and take them to dance class, and it is overwhelming. But I didn't post about it. Why? Because sometimes you just don't think that other people either care or need to see the negative stress, right? No one wants to hear you whine, or at least that's what you think. No one wants to hear you complain. But the reality is, when we only post things on social media about how wonderful life is, people don't see that we are sometimes struggling, that we are human beings as well, that we have anxiety, depression, fear. Hi, Anna, how are you? We struggle. Everyone struggles, right? So it should be okay that we share those things. So studies are indicating that social media is impacting depression and anxiety because everyone looks at how wonderful everyone else does and then compares their life to it. So it's really important that we are cognizant of that, and we understand that, it may not be all rainbows and butterflies all the time for everyone, and it's okay that you struggle sometimes too. So screen time and that's not just social media, that is video games and TV and computers and tablets, and all of those things are also contributing to an increase in anxiety. So it's important, especially if you have kids, that you are figuring out and maintaining a certain limit on those things. I took some notes here because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. So now that we've talked about a little bit of what anxiety is, let's talk about the causes. So first, women are 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety than men. And it can be contributed to multiple things. First, it can be inherited. So if you have a parent or a grandparent, or you have a history of mental health in your family, This will be a consistent topic throughout all of my weeks and any topic that we talk about, but anxiety is no different. So if you have a mother with anxiety, it is more likely that you are also going to have anxiety. If you've experienced trauma, whether that is as a child, let's say you experienced or you grew up in a household with domestic violence and witnessed domestic violence between your parents, it is more likely that you are going to have an anxiety disorder because your brain is having a difficult time separating normal instances of an argument to witnessing that trauma through as a child. It's not just domestic violence, that's just an example. Same thing with, let's say you're a veteran and you develop PTSD. Anxiety is a big part of that. There could be a chemical imbalance in your brain, and we talked a lot about the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, right? So what happens is when that amygdala overpowers that prefrontal cortex, things like dopamine and serotonin, they're no longer being created and firing at the same rate that your body needs to compensate for that fear and that worry. So those are all a combined essential cause of anxiety. So how do you cope, right? So you found out you have anxiety, or you think that you have anxiety, but you're unsure how to tackle that, right? So there are a lot of different coping mechanisms that can be used in order to kind of calm down that brain and refocus and say, okay, things aren't as bad as I think they are, right? So there's mindfulness and meditation. That is a great way to slow things down. So I think I talked a little bit about this last week. When I lay down and get ready for bed, I have the hardest time falling asleep, and that is because my whole mind races. Well, that is what happens with your anxiety as well. So what I do is for about 2 minutes, take really deliberate deep breaths. You take a deep breath in through your nose to the point that like you fill your lungs and your diaphragm and that you cannot take any more air in. And then a deep breath throughout your mouth. And sometimes I sigh. That helps with kind of just letting it all out. And you breathe out slowly, and for as long as you can, you want to empty your lungs and empty your diaphragm. You want to feel like you don't have any more air left in your body, and that helps really slow things down and calm down. Hi, Dimitri, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Second, exercise has been a really great way to calm anxiety. Consistent exercise, it gets your blood flowing, it gets things firing on all cylinders. Then there's the combination of benzodiazepines or antidepressants, or a combination of both. So when things are so bad that you can't cope on your own, then you can also elect to use a medication, which there's been proven studies that show that medication helps with anxiety. Sometimes it can be hit and miss though. Everyone's body is different, right? So my body is going to be different than your body, and how my body reacts to a medication is different. For example, my husband cannot take, it's an allergy medicine, Benadryl. He cannot take Benadryl literally without passing out in 30 minutes. It puts him to sleep, and it says that it can make you drowsy, right? But I'm talking like it knocks him out. It doesn't work that same way for me. I might feel a little tired, but I can still function. He literally has to take a half of a Benadryl to function. So everyone's body and body makeup and chemistry is different. So how an antidepressant or a benzodiazepine will work for you will be different. Hi, Danielle. How are you? So that also means that you could take something and it doesn't work. And that is so frustrating, especially when all you want when you have this anxiety that you cannot handle on your own is some relief. You want to just be able to feel like you can function and that you can walk into a room and not have a panic attack. So it can take time to find the right medication. Of course, there's advances in medicine that they can take blood samples and send out to determine what medications will work best for you, but there's still a list. It will come back with, these are the medications that will work best, these are the medications that may work, and these are the medications that you do not want to take. So it's great that we've narrowed it down, but now we still have this entire list of things that could potentially work for us, but we don't even know in what combination. So it can take some time, which is really frustrating. Studies have also shown that it is proven that the best way to combat anxiety is both with medication and with therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is typically the most used therapy for anxiety. And a lot of times, if you are in counseling, your therapist will say that they are going to expose you to the stimulus of, so let's say that you have a fear of spiders. They may do an exposure therapy to start to desensitize you from your fear. And what that means is you are continually exposed to the thing that makes you most nervous, or your biggest fear. So if that is spiders or a fear of speaking or being in public with other people, you will be exposed to those things, whether that's in session or out of session. And the more you're exposed to it, the more you become desensitized. And how that works is when you are exposed and you don't die and something bad doesn't happen, your brain then will connect you to, okay, so nothing bad did happen, so maybe I will be okay. And over and over and over that happens, and your brain finally no longer recognizes that spider as a threat to you. And that's kind of how that works. Talk therapy, exposure therapy, being able to recognize what your triggers are, all of those things contribute to being able to then cope with them later on. It's really important that you're able to recognize what your triggers are in order to start to kind of combat them. I really hope that this kind of was a blanket, what's the word I'm looking for? But you get a better understanding of what anxiety is and how it impacts people. People with chronic anxiety, generalized anxiety, social anxiety, have a difficult time functioning day to day because their brain no longer is able to say, you are okay. It often takes over their entire life. And so if you don't understand, or if someone says, I have anxiety, and your response is, yeah, well, so do I, you probably don't have the same level of anxiety as they do. And it's important to understand that everyone struggles with something different. And being able to be supportive to people and help them through some of their struggles is only going to help benefit them and you. If you have any questions, please reach out. I am happy to help with anything, whether that is you need ideas on how to cope with something, or you have a friend that, I mean, it doesn't have to be for you. If you don't want to tell me it's for you, that's okay. You have a friend that says they're having a hard time, functioning with A, B, and C, reach out. If you have a question about my video and don't understand something, reach out. If you have Netflix, I highly, highly, highly recommend the anxiety episode of The Mind Explained. It is really, really good. It breaks it down so you can see how anxiety works. It talks a lot about the same things that I discussed here today, but it's visual. So a lot of people are visual learners, and that, I'm telling you, it is excellent. So this week, look for each day a new post about anxiety. And like I said, if you need anything, please reach out. I am going to get my kids ready so we can go celebrate my mom's birthday. Wonderful Saturday. It's been a pleasure.